I'm Ross Miles from Pro Football Focus Fantasy. Welcome to Fantasy Slant. We've had free agency, we've had the draft, OTAs and mini camps are getting underway, and of course that brings injuries. As a result, analysts like myself, we're tweaking with our rankings, we're moving people up and down, and obviously taking stock of what's really going on across the NFL. Now, this gives me a great opportunity to bring to you my top 5 IDP risers for the coming season. Now, one guy who's really taken my eye, I think, is Olivier Vernon. Now, he currently ranks 18th overall in our combined IDP rankings for defensive ends. Now, this is a guy who had 11.5 sacks last year, 57 total tackles. He really put the hammer down and made an impact. Yet he didn't really get the credit he deserved. You know, this was a guy who didn't see his name on the ballot for the Pro Bowl. It's a guy who just, around the NFL and in the fantasy circles, isn't getting much love, and I think this is totally wrong. So that's why I'm including him in this list. Despite the fact he had decent numbers last year, I just don't think he's ingrained himself in the fantasy community. He's someone I think we should all be paying close attention to. Of course, we need to bear in mind the return of Cameron Wake, and this could definitely help boost his numbers. Wake struggled with injury last year, which meant he didn't take the pressure off Vernon when Vernon was on the field. So I think Vernon could see a lot of good one-on-one matchups this year, and he could really capitalise on what was a great 2013 and really push forward this coming year. Another defensive end I'm really keen on, who is being handed a much more playing time in Minnesota, is Everson Griffen. Now, the release of Jared Allen, who's now signed with the Chicago Bears, means Griffin's going to step up and start bookending his now teammate Brian Roberson. Now, Griffin's been held back into a kind of a reserve role, playing the backup role, spelling Allen and Robinson. And in those last 2 years, he's managed to record 13.5 sacks, which is pretty good numbers considering he's been on a limited snap count. Now, Griffen did play 717 snaps last year, but that number should escalate up to not over 900, maybe as close as 1,000. And what we'll see is he'll start getting more playing on obvious running downs and racking up some total tackles, because of course, before in his career, he's never recorded over 30, which is a somewhat dampener on his fantasy value. But taking all of this into account, projecting him forward into this new starting role, we have him currently ranked as the 23rd defensive lineman overall, and I think he can definitely push on from there, just like I thought Vernon could. Griffin's a guy I'm definitely keeping my eye on, and he's someone I'd really like to have on my roster as my 3rd defensive end. He's going to be a good player this year, and I think he's going to sneak under the radar for a lot of people. Moving on to linebacker, a player who got touted quite heavily last year when he was a Denver Bronco, but failed to live up to those lofty expectations, was Wesley Woodyard. Now, admittedly, Woodyard did suffer from a stinger early in the season, and that really seemed to hamper his play, and he never really got rolling after that. Of course, there were other things happening in Denver, Von Miller's suspension and subsequent injury, and the growth of Danny Trevathan into a full 3-down linebacker who really racked up tackles himself. Now, Woodyard found himself as the odd man out in Denver, and he's now landed with Tennessee Titans. Now, I think he's going to man the middle linebacker role and probably do it as a 3-down player. I might be in somewhat of the minority in suggesting this. I know that other camps that don't believe Woodyard at 27 is going to find his former glories, but for me, I think the Tennessee system is going to really suit him. I think he could thrive if he wins that role. If that's the case, where he's going his average draft position, you're getting an absolute bargain. I think if as a 3-down player, Woodyard's an absolute lock to be an LB2, and a good one at that. Another linebacker, or at least a linebacker in a team that's going to be struggling with a loss of production next year, will be Kevin Minter of the Arizona Cardinals. Now, it's been well documented that Darrell Washington is facing an indefinite suspension, and of course, the player who played alongside him in the middle of the park, Carlos Dansby, left and signed with Cleveland. Now, that leaves a great big hole. Between them, those players combined for 196 total tackles, 9 sacks, and 6 interceptions. Now, not saying all that production has to be gobbled up by someone, but those are tackles that have to end up somewhere, and we're going to look to the linebacker core for where that's going to come from. And I'd suggest Kevin Minter, a rookie from a few seasons back, is the primary candidate. Admittedly, he only played 1 snap last year, but he's already been pegged as the middle linebacker, and he's definitely going to see plenty of time this year. We've currently got him ranked as an LB3, but his value has skyrocketed from last year when he was a clear backup. He's got a very obvious step to lots and lots of playing time, and although fantasy owners around the league are cottoning on to this, he still might have a bit more value. He might squeak up to LB2 if he can really reproduce some of the form we saw from Dansby and Washington. Obviously, that's been an aggressive system in which linebackers have profited. I won't take all the attention, put all the attention on Minter, though, because I think Deone Bucannon, the rookie safety they drafted, could also benefit from this situation. Now, Bucannon is penciled in as a starter, although he has been dealing with a turf toe injury. But like I said, there was 196 total tackles to go around that has been left by Dansby and Washington not being on the field. And some of that could well filter through to the secondary. And I would imagine Bucannon, a strong safety, could be mopping up some of these ball carriers and tackles. So he's a guy who potentially wasn't really on radars coming into the NFL draft, even from fantasy circles and in dynasty leagues. But because of the issue we've had with losing Dansby, losing Washington, putting an untested rookie in the middle in Minter, Bucannon could be the one that profits. So he's a guy I'm definitely keeping an eye on. He's currently a DB3 in our rankings. Yeah, the big DB3 tier, but he could grow on, move on from that and join DB2s. So in a quick summary, the players I'm really looking to move on this year are Olivier Vernon, Everson Griffen, Wesley Woodyard, and then the Arizona duo of Kevin Minter and Deone Bucannon. I'm Ross Miles from Pro Football Focus. I'll speak to you soon.